Emily Crawford, the sinister medium who unearthed 13 cursed spirits from the haunted abyss. Emily Crawford gripped the edge of the rickety table, her heart pounding in rhythm with the frantic whispers swirling around the dimly lit basement. Shadows flickered like restless spirits, casting grotesque shapes on the walls. The air was thick, suffocating, charged with a tension that sent shivers racing down her spine. Just a week ago, she had opened the portal during a seemingly innocent session, and now the spirits were clamoring for attention, growing bolder and more demanding each night. Neighbors huddled together in the unfinished space, their faces painted with awe and disbelief. They had come to connect with their loved ones. Laughter echoed against the cracked walls. But tonight, something had shifted, an unease lingering thick in the atmosphere, palpable and electric. A sudden gust of icy wind surged through the basement, extinguishing the flickering candles, plunging them into unsettling darkness. Panic rippled through the small group, a tingle of fear crawled up Emily's neck as she strained to hear the low humming echoing in her ears. The whispers morphed into harsh shouts, scratching at her psyche. "A mistake!" they screamed, "Release us!" Emily's trembling fingers traced the ancient wood of the table. Her mind raced. Had she really unleashed something far worse than she intended? As the throbbing chill enveloped her, her thoughts hung in a grim precipice. Her son's safety teetered like a candle in a storm, flickering and threatening to go out into chaos. Days turned to nights draped in heavy blankets of fear. The whispers escalated. The sounds grew louder and more chaotic, rising up around her like a tide. Bulbs burst, darkness encroached, a mounting dread flooded her chest. Mike, her husband, brushed it off, claiming it was just stress, just the weight of financial worry as he searched for work. But she knew something sinister was lurking, burying itself in the fragile fabric of their home. One night, the air crackled with an ominous energy. Emily checked on Tommy, her 8-year-old, whose soft breaths reassured her until a horrible scream cut through the night. Sprinting to his room, she was met with a sight that chilled her to her core. A twisted, wraith-like figure hovered above him, its mouth agape in an unspeakable howl. The room pulsed with terror. Throwing herself between the spirit and her son, Emily felt its icy fingers brush against her, a bone-deep chill that seized her heart with fear. "Let him go!" she screamed, but it vanished in an instant, leaving behind a frigid silence that draped the room. Tommy stirred, his eyes wide, filled with the innocent terror that echoed Emily's own. Nothing made sense anymore. The spirits had turned aggressive, no longer benign. They were manifestations of rage, each one tied to the sins of Maplewood. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With fear gripping her heart, Emily dove deep into her community's buried secrets. Dark truths unfurled like twisted vines, connecting the disturbed souls haunting her to Reverend Matthews, a man cloaked in trust but veiled in manipulation. As his shadow loomed larger, Emily knew she was up against more than just angry spirits. Time was running out, and if she couldn't unearth the truth or seal the malevolence, they would claim Tommy her light in this endless dark. What would it take to save her family from the clutches of chaos? The night felt endless, a cold stretch of shadows smiling down on Emily as she crouched near the basement floor, the rickety table forming a barrier between her and the unseen horrors. The atmosphere buzzed with malign energy, vibrating against her skin like a live wire. Her breath quickened, and she thought of Tommy, blissfully unaware of the terror poised to erupt. With hesitation, she reached for the tarot cards scattered beneath the table, each card a reflection of the spirits she had summoned. The Lovers. The Tower. Death. They were warnings etched in ink and fear. Had she ignored the signs? Panic surged through her body as the whispers escalated, growing angrier, clawing at her sanity. "Help us! Help him! The basement door creaked open, and Mike appeared, looking pale, eyes wide. "Emily! What is happening?" he shouted over the cacophony. The Reverend's laughter sliced through the chaos, a grim reminder of the leverage he held. Shadows twisted and snapped, responding to his contempt like a pack of ravenous wolves. The air grew heavier, a thick mist of despair settling over Emily like a shroud. "Reverend Matthews," she gasped, her heart hammering like a drum, "what are you doing here?" He stepped into the light, a ghost among ghosts, his features warped into a cruel grin. "Oh, I'm just enjoying the show," he replied with an eerie calmness, eyes glimmering with wicked glee. "This place thrives on chaos, Emily. You should be known your meddling would summon more than just a few spirits." Mike, trembling beside her, clenched his fists. "You unleashed this horror, Matthews. What are you after?" The Reverend chuckled, a sound that sent a shiver down Emily's spine. "After? My dear boy, I'm here to reclaim what's mine. This house, this power, it belongs to the darkness. And you too," he gestured mockingly, "you're just pawns in a game far beyond your understanding." Emily's mind raced. She could feel the warmth of Tommy slipping away, shadows clawing hungrily at the edges of her sanity. "We can't let them claim him," she whispered to Mike, desperation tightening in her throat. "We have to break the binding. The words you're reciting, they're just a whisper against the storm. You have to know the source. Summon something stronger, Emily." He gripped her arm, determination shining through fear, each word echoing in the oppressive gloom, but was she strong enough? Her chant wavered, doubt gnawing at her resolve. The shadows danced maliciously, creeping closer with hungry intent, as the spirit's wails intensified, blending into a crescendo of despair. "Release us! Free us!" they cried, their voices melding into a single overwhelming plea. Focusing on the light from the basement window, Emily fought against the darkness surrounding her. "I'm not afraid of you," she shouted, her voice ringing out defiantly. The flicker of illumination pulsed like a beacon, daring her to take the final plunge. "And what of your son, dear Emily?" Reverend Matthews taunted, edging closer. "He's the key. The child of a medium, how amusing. His pure spirit could amplify my power infinitely." "No!" Mike shouted, his voice tinged with both fear and rage, lashing out against the Reverend. But Matthew's laughter was a deep, rich rumble. "You think you can protect him? It's already begun. The darkness hungers, and it feels satisfaction on the horizon." Emily steadied herself, summoning courage from the pit of her being. "You want to take him. I want to let you." The basement trembled, world and spirit colliding. Something primal surged within her, a raw force combined with the pain of the spirits, coursing through her veins like fire. But just as the light brightened, a blast of icy air swept through, swallowing the warmth, extinguishing her focus. Suddenly, the walls began to shudder. Cracks formed like jagged mouths, threatening to consume them whole. The wailing crescendoed into a deafening roar, filling her mind with panic. Before her, the shadowy figures twisted and contorted, their mouths agape. "He is ours. You are too late." Emily turned back to the shimmering light, taking a deep breath, her desperation igniting a flicker of resolve. She had to push through. She could feel the shackles of fear coiling around her heart, yet she willed herself to chant louder, the words tumbling from her lips with renewed power. Suddenly, a voice cut through the din, a child's voice, soft and pleading. "Mommy, help me." Tommy's voice. The shadows writhed back, momentarily stunned, and Emily's heart leaped. "We will get him back," she shouted, urgency electrifying her every nerve. But just as she gathered strength, Reverend Matthews' form blurred, and an unseen force shoved back against her will. "Join us, or perish," he commanded, the shadows swirling violently. She could not let that happen. With unyielding resolve, Emily poured herself into the words. "By the light that binds and the love that frees, I summon the sacred." But would that be enough? Shadows closed around her, the anger pulsating with a life of its own. "Emily!" Mike shouted, his eyes wide with terror. "We're running out of time." The air felt electric charged with desperation. Could she break through the darkness and save him before it was too late? The basement screamed with rage, the battle within escalating. In that moment, she realized this fight wasn't just for Tommy. It was a fight for their souls. "Come on!" she screamed, her voice soaring in defiance. But as the shadows surged forward, would she be strong enough to stand against the tide? The darkness loomed closer, ready to consume them all. The energy surged like a tidal wave, crashing through the basement. A frigid wind whipped through the room, extinguishing the flickering light and plunging them into an even deeper darkness. Shadows spiraled violently, wrapping around Emily's legs like serpents, dragging her down toward the pitch-black floor. "Emily!" Mike's voice was a desperate cry, breaking through the cacophony of wailing spirits. He battled against the tide, his eyes wide with fear, but it felt futile. Each swell of darkness robbed them of strength, and the wretched cries of the lost souls clawed at her sanity. "Fight it!" she shouted, straining against the oppressive weight upon her chest. She could almost hear Tommy's soft whimpers twisted in the chaos. Images of her son, his innocent smile and trusting eyes, flooded her mind and laced her determination with fire. "Get out of my way!" she screamed, her voice reverberating with more power than she knew she possessed. She raised her hands, focused on that flickering light, a lifeline struggling against the tempest. Suddenly, the shadows recoiled as if stung, their fury momentarily stifled. Matthew's laughter echoed like thunder, deep and mocking. "You think mere words will save you? The darkness is stronger than you can ever imagine. Tommy is not yours." She raged, refusing to buckle under the pressure. As if in response, the shadows shrieked in cacophonous fury, slashing toward her like thorned vines. They wrapped tightly around her arms, squeezing like a vice, trying to mute her voice. But she would not be silenced. The air thickened with desperation and fear, a sentiment that resonated with the tormented souls who lingered. "You can't silence the truth," Emily bellowed, pushing against the shadows squeezing her throat. "I summon the light to free you." Another rush of energy propelled her voice, propelling the words into an almost deafening roar. "By the light that binds and love that frees, I summon the sacred, I command you to cease." For a heartbeat, darkness faltered. A soft glow emerged from her palms, a golden luminance that started to push back the shadows. The air shimmered with palpable energy, the spirits responding to the promise of release. In a sudden flash, she glimpsed Tommy's face through the swirling chaos. His small figure stood within a murky void, eyes wide, filled with unshed tears. "Mommy!" he cried, his voice cracking. "Tommy!" She lunged forward, desperate to save him, but the shadows surged back, a cold wave that tossed her back like a rag doll. "No!" she howled, but it came out as a hollow whisper, smothered by the howling spirits swarming around. "Let him go!" Mike roared, lashing out at the darkness, but his attempts seemed like futile swipes at a storm. The shadows twisted tighter, and a primal fear gripped Emily's heart. "Your love gives me strength," she cried, feeling the connection with Tommy, willing him to hear her. "Love burns brighter than darkness." The luminous energy intensified, cascading around her like a protective barrier. It shone through the cracks, exposing the hidden terrors, the writhing forms of the tormented souls, pulled from their limbo. They screamed, just for a moment, and then, they fell silent, the room vibrating with their dread. "Do not consume the innocent," Emily shouted again, and as if her words were a blade, the shadows withered back, their grip loosening slightly. But Reverend Matthews was unfazed. "You think you can fight against the Ancient? You think you can protect him?" His voice held a cold, lethal edge, dripping with amusement. He stepped toward Tommy's vision, a malevolent jester in this twisted theater. "You will join them, little one, or lose everything." Suddenly, the floor quaked beneath them as if the house was aware of their struggle, something ancient groaning in protest. The walls trembled, ready to collapse, ready to swallow them all into oblivion. "Emily now!" Mike shouted as the shadows shrieked in unison, driving toward Tommy. With renewed resolve, Emily closed her eyes, summoning every ounce of her being, every flicker of love for her son. "I won. Give in," she declared, words fierce and unwavering. "By the light that binds, I command you to flee." The shadows recoiled, a seething horde retreating in fragments, bleeding into the corners as the basement light pulsed like a heartbeat. But the fight was far from over. Emily felt the Reverend's laughter clawing at the edges of her consciousness, unrelenting, mocking. "Do you really think you can win?" he taunted, his words circling like vultures, hungry for a moment of despair. As chaos erupted again, the very room screaming around them, one thought pierced through the storm of terror. If she could not find the core of this darkness, if they could not face whatever was behind Matthews, they wouldn't escape this hell alive. The shadows lunged forward once more, ravenous in their hunger. Could they hold on long enough to uncover the truth, or would they join the countless souls trapped in torment? Emily braced herself against the unseen tide, heart pounding, knowing she had little time left. The future hung by a thread, and every second counted. The shadows surged with renewed intensity, their fangs snapping as they descended upon Emily and Mike. The darkness writhed, enhancing the terror that gripped their hearts. Desperation clawed at Emily's insides, urging her to fight, to reach for Tommy. "Stay close," Mike shouted, pulling Emily's hand tighter. But the shadows seemed to sense their fear, deepening and twisting around them like a living creature. Each heartbeat echoed louder in the stifling air, their rhythm matched only by the frantic speed of her thoughts. "Remember the stories," he urged, glancing over his shoulder at her. "We read about this. It's fueled by fear. If we lose hope." His voice trailed off, swallowed by the suffocating darkness. Emily clung to his words. She could hear the low moans of the trapped souls, voices she could almost recognize, whispers of warning mingling with cries for help. "We won't let it take Tommy," she vowed. "Not today." Suddenly, the shadows lunged forward, coiling viciously around Mike, dragging him toward a dark corner where the light had faltered. Emily gasped, terror skyrocketing in her chest. "Mike!" She yanked at his arm, but he was too far. They were being separated, and with it came the chill of despair. "Concentrate!" he yelled, his eyes wild but fierce. "You can do this. Use the light." With every ounce of willpower surging through her veins, Emily summoned the radiant energy within her. Light flickered wildly, illuminating the grotesque features of the shadows as they snarled and howled, fighting against her growing force. She felt their anguish, a reflection of her own. "By the bond of love, I set you free," she declared again, her voice steadying, resonating with the silvery glow building in her palms. It pulsed, fueling her resolve as the silhouettes shrieked, trapped between her power and their terror. The basement quaked violently, deeper cracks splintering the walls. Dust rained down like shattered dreams. But in that chaos, the shadows retreated slightly, revealing glimpses of the spirits they cradled, faces twisted in pain and hollow eyes locked on her. "Could that be Tommy?" "Please, forgive me," Emily moaned, feeling the desperate need for release crawl under her skin. "I'm here to help you." With a sudden surge, a woman's face emerged from the shadows, her gaze piercing. "You cannot help us, child," she hissed, her voice echoing like thunder. "You can only delay what comes." Panic lanced through Emily. What did she mean? Was this an endless cycle, one she couldn't break? "Grab hold of the light," Mike shouted, straining against the shadows that refused to relinquish him. He could barely see through the darkness now, but she could hear the fear pooling in his chest, the hint of hopelessness. A twinge of doubt gnawed at her. Were they destined to join the tortured souls forever? "Tommy!" she cried fiercely, pushing the glowing energy outward, chasing away the shadows inch by inch. Where are you, baby? The wailing of the spirits grew louder, drowning out her voice. But then, through the chaos, a faint flicker caught her eye, a small silhouette stepping tentatively from the edge of the dark void. Mommy! Emily's heart surged at the sound, a clarion call of hope. She pushed further, her light blazing like a beacon through the suffocating fog. Tommy! Keep coming! The shadows recoiled, but the Reverend's laughter, a sinister melody, rose above the cacophony, mocking her efforts. You think you can save him? He belongs to the darkness now. With a final surge, Emily shouted, no. The luminous energy burst forth, striking the shadows that recoiled as if burned. She felt them weaken, felt Mike's grip slipping back toward her, but hope flickered when a shadow surged toward Tommy, wrapping around him as he gasped, terror spreading across his face. Help me, Mommy. No. The word tore from her throat, raw and desperate. But even as she felt the collective horror of the basement enveloping her, she refused to give in, and then, everything shifted. The air shimmered again, and the light between them shimmered over the edges of their hell. But how long could they hold on against the tide? With a thrill of uncertainty, Emily knew time was running short, too short. How many souls had already been lost, and could Tommy survive this fight? Just then, a chilling voice whispered through the tumult, echoing with a promise that made her heart tremble. Join us or fall. Lightning crackled above, and with it, the basement trembled in response. The walls shook as Emily sensed their grip slipping. Could they find the source of the darkness in time? As Mike howled against the chaos, Emily. We have to find the heart of it all. Whatever power bound the darkness held the key. But what lay beyond the shadows? And would they find it before it consumed everything? With a dying light flickering in her hands, Emily pushed forward, but something cold and unrelenting blocked her path. Could they unravel the dark truth before it swallowed them whole? The air thickened, coiling around Emily like a noose as she scrambled to keep her footing. The shadows lunged, a torrent of darkness that breathed cold dread into her core. Each second felt like an eternity as the figures twisted and turned, their movements frenetic, hungry. She squeezed her eyes shut, willing the light within her to drown out the despair lurking in the corners. Emily! Focus! Mike rasped, his voice fading. She could barely see him through the haze, and each cry sent tremors through her heart. She couldn't lose him. Not now. Drawing in a deep breath, Emily recentered herself, clenching her fists. By the bond of love, I set you free. She cried again, the chant almost a prayer. The radiance from her hands surged, a dazzling light thrusting against the dark, pushing back like a tidal wave. But the shadows roared back, a cacophony of anger and anguish, their shrieks vibrating with an unholy resonance. It twisted inside her chest, clashed with her light, threatening to extinguish her hope. She could see the twisted forms of the spirits more clearly now, mouths agape in silent screams, eyes glossy with unshed tears. Let him go. She shouted, eyes locked on the dark mass that gripped Tommy. His little form was suspended, surrounded by choked wails. Tommy! Just as she reached for him, a dark figure unfurled from the back of the room, a grotesque shape that seemed to absorb the light around it. Mike's screams pierced the air, sending a fresh surge of terror spiraling through her. Emily! Behind you! With instinctual dread, she spun, her heart hammering wildly. The shadow loomed larger, a monstrous sentinel of despair, its tendrils stretching out as if desiring to sink into her very soul. Emily stumbled back, feeling the suffocating weight of despair growing heavier. What do you want? She gasped, desperation creeping into her voice. Your light is a flicker in the dark, it hissed, a voice like crackling ash that sent a cold shiver down her spine. You will be extinguished no. She shouted, forcing her light to beam brighter, spilling over her fingertips, illuminating the dark. I want to let you take him. Something deep within her screamed, a primal instinct that urged her to fight. But as the shadows writhed and lunged, she felt the very fabric of her strength wearing thin. The light she conjured was faltering, just a candle threatening to be snuffed out. Through the haze, she glimpsed Tommy's face again, wide-eyed, terrified. It ignited a wild flame of determination. She couldn't let him slip away. "Hold on, baby," she cried, stretching her hand towards his. "I'm coming." The shadows lunged, devouring the space between them. With a howl of defiance, Emily threw herself forward directly into the heart of the darkness. A raw force flared within her, almost like an electric pulse. She felt barriers crashing, her spirit surging. But as she pressed into the gloom, the laughter twisted through the air, mocking, reverberating. "You think you can save him? This is just the beginning." Emily's heart plummeted. What did it mean? The shadows began to ripple violently, trying to reclaim their grip on the boy, threatening to twist him into their domain. She felt Mike strengthening beside her, his aura flickering to life, feeding off of her desperate hope. "Together," he called. Hand in hand, they pushed against the darkness, a blinding light igniting between them, a beacon in the abyss. But even as their combined strength surged, the pressure doubled, suffocating and overwhelming. "Find the source," Mike urged, his voice raw. Somewhere in the dark, but as she pressed on, every instinct screamed to retreat. What lay ahead, waiting in that thickness of shadow, felt beyond her nightmares. Can we face what haunts us? Emily wondered. Doubt wormed its way in, chilling her resolve. And just as the shadows roared in response, an icy whisper slithered through the darkness. "The heart of despair is where you'll find the truth." The ground trembled beneath them. The darkness pulsed like a heartbeat, a sinister rhythm taut with threat. With a rush of adrenaline, Emily turned to Mike, her eyes wide. What if the darkness knows something we don't? One way lay a path of light, but in the opposite direction as the shadows raged, an idea shot through her, a plan hidden deep within fear. Could they brave the storm? Or would the dark truths consume all hope, pulling them under? What if we unleash what has been trapped? She questioned, biting her lip. Can we trust it? He replied, his voice trembling. But before she could answer, the shadows lunged once more, and the basement shrieked in protest, an echo of a truth waiting to be revealed. The shadows swirled violently around them, a maelstrom of darkness that seemed to breathe, to sigh with malice. Emily's heart raced, drowning in the fear that threatened to suffocate her. She could feel the pulse of dread, a rhythmic thud matching her racing heartbeat, and it called to a primal part of her. This was no ordinary fight, this was survival. Unleash it! Mike yelled. His voice cut through the chaos like a lifeline. The air crackled with tension, alive with the energy of forgotten souls. We have to risk it. Emily bit her lip, uncertainty clawing at her insides. What lay beyond the threshold of the darkness? Something unseen watched, its presence heavy, lingering like a bad memory. But she couldn't show weakness, she had to believe. For Tommy. For Mike. On three, she whispered, gathering her fading strength. 1, 2, 3. They pushed into the shadows, willing the trapped energy to explode from within. The light between their hands flared, blinding and angry, illuminating every inch of the haunting void. They had tapped into something. As they advanced, the shadows recoiled, hissing, shrieking in anger and pain. The resonance grew deeper, pulling at her mind. You will regret this. A chorus of voices wove through the air, the sound scraping at her sanity. It wasn't just a threat, it was a chilling promise. Keep going. Mike urged, pulling her forward. But doubt lingered in the back of Emily's mind. Were they drawing out the darkness or simply inviting more despair? Each step felt like a gamble, and the stakes climbed higher with every pulse of the vile energy. Suddenly, from the black chaos, a wispy form emerged, a slender woman with hollow eyes and a mouth twisted into a grimace. Why do you disturb my slumber? Her voice was bone-chilling, each syllable wrapping itself around Emily, giving off a sickening weight. Let him go. Emily shouted, desperation fueling her voice. She stretched out her hand, but the figure laughed, a sound sharp enough to cut through the air. "Your love cannot save him nor yourself," the figure hissed, her shadowy form swirling violently like smoke caught in a windstorm. "You will fall, and he will be one of us." "No." Mike's voice rang out, fierce and filled with anguish. "We'll break this curse." Emily's determination ignited, the spark of hope against the looming despair. "You're wrong. Our love is stronger than your darkness." The room shook as their combined light flared brighter, illuminating the sorrowful faces of the spirits scattered in the void. Each one called out in anguish, desperate cries woven into the tapestry of Emily's heart. She could feel their pain, but also their hope, and it fueled her. "Shut it down!" Mike screamed. "Focus. Find the source." Through the chaos, Emily closed her eyes. She steadied her breath, heart pounding in a disjointed rhythm as she concentrated hard. In that moment of clarity, she envisioned the source of all this dark energy, the twisted heart of despair that lay at the center of the storm. With a primal scream, she directed all her light at the dark mass swirling before her. "We free you." The shadows writhed violently, and as the darkness pulsed, something shifted. The spirit figures rose with her light, rushing into the blinding brilliance of Emily's aura. A chilling howl rose, unearthly and wild, echoing through the depths of the basement. Too late. The dark figure screeched, its form growing large and menacing behind the blinding light. "You think this is an escape? The curse always finds you." Fingers of shadow shot out, wrapping around Emily's limbs, pulling her back, the icy grip like shackles tightening. The abyss seemed to laugh, deep and raucous, drowning out their chants. As light battled shadows, Emily's vision blurred. She could only cling to the sensation of the darkness encroaching, the weight of despair threatening to crush her. "Mike! Hold my hand!" She gasped, the last fragments of her strength spilling into the light. But the tendrils clawed harder, pulling with an unyielding force, and she could sense the veil between worlds stretching thin. "Emily!" His cry shattered the darkness. "Remember the bond. Fight!" She could barely think. The ground beneath her quaked, a horrifying rumble reverberating through the air. She felt herself begin to slip away. Dread clawed at her throat as she screamed, "What if the darkness consumes us before we can stop it?" In that moment of panic, a flicker of realization ignited within her, a truth buried deep in intuition. What if embracing the dark was the only way to find clarity? As the shadows lunged one last time, the world around her began to fade. Would they emerge from the darkness, or was this their final descent into oblivion? Emily's breath came in rapid gasps, the last flickers of light dimming as dark tendrils tightened their grasp around her body. The basement felt like it was collapsing in on itself, the air thickening with despair. Every sound around her twisted into a cacophony, a mix of wails and laughter that sent tremors of fear racing down her spine. "No. No." Her voice barely rose above a whisper, swallowed by the overwhelming shadows. Mike's frantic grip on her hand seemed to be the only tether she had left to the real world. With every heartbeat, the darkness pressed closer, a suffocating presence that threatened to drown out any trace of hope. "Fight it!" Mike roared, his voice fierce, but even he sounded distant, drowned beneath the weight of the shadows. What if the darkness was right? What if their love really couldn't save them? For Tommy, Emily thought, desperation clawing at her mind. She had to keep fighting. She focused on the bond they shared, the love they had carved out through pain and laughter. Emily's light flickered, a fragile ember whispering against the chill of the void. With a surge of determination, she pushed back against the crushing shadows. Placing both hands on Mike's, she closed her eyes, drawing strength from his warmth. "We can't let it win." The laughter that surrounded them twisted. "You fools!" The dark figure's voice shrieked, warping the air itself. "You think this is a game? You play with forces beyond your understanding." The temperature plummeted. Ice clawed at Emily's skin, latched onto her heart. But she pushed harder. Gritting her teeth, she poured every ounce of emotions, love, rage, and terror into a single point of light. Now! She shouted, and Mike squeezed her hands tighter, amplifying the last flicker of their hope. They unleashed their combined energy, plunging it into the darkness like a sword through flesh. The shadows screeched, howling as their glowing light sparked along the edges of the void. Spirits began to swirl around them, drawn to the brightness. Emily's heart raced. Were they free? But the dark figure leered. You think you can defeat me? You're just another offering on my altar, an appetizer for the true feast. With that, the shadows thrashed violently, and the spirit forms twisted in agony, resisting her light. Mike! We need to break it. Focus. The abyss rumbled, as if the very foundation of reality shook under the malevolence they faced. Just beyond the swirling mass, shadows writhed, forming more figures, each one an echo of pain they had suffered. Emily caught fleeting glimpses of sorrowful faces, each locked in torment. Stop! She screamed. You're not trapped. You just need to let go. One by one, the tormented spirits turned, their faces merging into the dark figure that loomed closer, growing monstrous in its fury. You dare defy me? It roared, its voice now a deafening growl. You will become part of my realm. Terror clawed at Emily. She felt a wave of ice wash over her, a chill so deep it felt like her blood was freezing. But she couldn't falter. Bursting through the layers of fear, she reached deep into herself. Together! She cried, her voice cutting through the chaos. Sparks ignited again, gathering around her hands like a wildfire, rippling through the shadows. She could feel Mike's energy, intertwined with hers, pushing back against the pull of despair. Fight! Tendrils of darkness lunged, seeking to clamp down on them, but Emily refused to surrender. She envisioned the light consuming every shadow, illuminating the path out. And just as she thought they might bend beneath the weight, she saw a figure emerge from the dark vortex. Tommy. His face, drawn but fierce, looked right at her. Hope surged. Emily! Fight for us! Tommy! She cried out, and the moment her light met his gaze, the connection shattered the tether binding her to the shadows. In an instant, the energy exploded outward, washing away the darkness that surrounded them. But so much remained, threatening to swallow them whole. Hold on! Mike yelled as the room spiraled into chaos, darkness collapsing around them. The howls of torment reached a fever pitch, echoing through the air like a storm. Would the final surge of light break the curse, or would they lose everything in the depths of despair? The moment the energy surged, the air crackled like a live wire. Emily felt an electrifying pulse zoom through her, an almost tangible thread linking her to Mike and the fading spirits. She gasped, pulling against the shadows that clawed at her, desperate to anchor herself to all that was light and love. Tommy! She shouted again, her voice fierce, demanding. The darkness writhed, a living entity bent on consuming them. As the chaotic energy cascaded like a waterfall around them, Emily could almost taste the bitterness of despair mixed with a hunger for freedom. Then it happened. The light from within them connected to the spirits, who now hovered in the threshold between worlds. They were no longer tortured souls, they were something more brave, willing to fight with her. She felt their combined strength, a surge of energy, and together they launched their light deeper into the unfathomable darkness. The altar. Aim for the altar. Mike shouted, his voice booming above the cacophony of terror. Emily focused on the heart of the shadows, where the dark figure loomed larger than life. Its eyes glowed with a malevolent hunger, and its mouth twisted into a devilish grin. You think you can steal my feast? You will join them. It bellowed, the ground vibrating beneath their feet, but they were not going to let it win. They surged forward, their collective light erupting like a supernova, illuminating every corner of the basement, pushing back against the dark wall. Emily fought to steer it toward the dark figure. Now! She cried again, hoping Tommy would hear her, hoping he was still connected in some way, driving their strength. For a heartbeat, it felt like the world paused. Shadows melted under the brilliance of their attack, but the dark figure only shrieked louder. "You are fools. You are lost." It hissed, a sound that seemed to drill into her head. Time became a liquid, slipping, sliding, as the darkness pulled at them. Emily's heart pounded ceaselessly. Each rhythm blended into a suggestion of fear that threatened to tear her apart. Caught between realms, she felt the pain of every soul it had taken, the loneliness ripping through the air like a gust of wind. "Don't give in. Don't let go," Mike urged, his eyes wide with desperation. But just then, the struggle intensified. The dark figure released a howl, a sound so awful it rang through the air like a death knell. Emily felt the icy fingers of despair wrap around her legs. She fought, but doubt flickered in her mind. If they failed? No. She gasped, squeezing Mike's hands tighter. "We can do this." In that moment, a spark ignited within her, a memory of laughter, a sunny day, and Tommy's face. The thought pulled at her, a lifeline. For Tommy. For love. The light suddenly surged, blasting through the shadows like a cannon. The dark figure shrieked as the collective power of the spirits erupted against it. Glistening shards of bright light pierced through the darkness, painting the walls with vivid colors of hope. "Push! Push harder!" Mike yelled, as if willing the universe to see their fight. The darkness roared, thrashing wildly as the light threatened to expand. Emily began to see the outlines of the spirits behind her, forming a protective wall, resisting the sinister force. "We are not afraid," they whispered, a chorus of defiance mingling with her own strength. Then something cracked, a loud, reverberating sound that shook the basement. Emily's heart sank. Is it enough? She dared to think, doubt creeping in again. The air grew thick, stifling. Something was about to shift, something fierce and unrelenting. "Get ready!" Mike shouted, his eyes locked on the dark figure, which twisted grotesquely. But the shadows recoiled, and the light shifted, as if they were afraid of what was to come. And then, just as an echo of hope lingered in the air, the dark figure screamed, its voice echoing through the basement. "I will claim what is mine." Emily's breath hitched, her heart pounding painfully. What was about to emerge from that darkness? Would they stand firm, or was there something sinister lurking, waiting for just the right moment to strike? Emily's heart raced, drumming in her chest like a war cry. Despair hung thick in the air, but with every ounce of strength she had, she clung to hope, her bond with Tommy and Mike anchoring her in the storm. The darkness twisted, a living entity scared of their unity. But she could sense something shifting, a weakness they had to exploit. Together. Emily shouted, willing every spirit in the room to channel their collective energy with her own. The flickering light flared, pulsing like a heartbeat, vibrant and fierce. Shadows reeled back, and as Emily extended her arms, she felt the warmth of 1,000 souls, their strength merging. "Find it," Mike urged again, eyes locked in a battle with the dark figure. "The source of its power. Aim for the heart of darkness." Emily nodded firmly, her spirit transferring strength into the light that pushed through the abyss. They would face the truth together, all of them, every soul trapped in torment. "We're not afraid," she declared, voice filled with authority. Beneath her, the ground responded, undulating as hope surged. "Come, my beloved," the dark figure sneered, morphing behind a veil of shadows. "Join the endless void. You will never escape." With a deep breath, Emily pushed past the sense of dread threatening to wrap around her. "We will not succumb," she shouted defiantly. "You are nothing without our fear. Feel the light." A sudden pulse of warmth surged within her, a knowing that clawed its way up from the depths of despair. Tommy's voice reverberated in her mind, "Mommy. Help me." No. Panic coursed through her, the darkness wanted him. "I will save you," she screamed, pouring love into her light. "For you, Tommy. For all of us." With that last push, the light erupted, tearing through the shadows like a hurricane slicing through calm waters. The energy whirled around them, illuminating every corner of the basement. Emily felt the raw power of the spirits converge, a blinding flash that banished doubt and fear. "Release us!" The spirits cried in unison as the walls pulsed, crashing against the weight of despair. The dark figure shrieked, a sound that echoed through the foundations of existence, like a wounded beast. As the dazzling light surged, Emily took a step forward, drawing everything she could from the ethereal realm, calling forth their freedom. "By the bonds of love and light, I command you to break." With a resounding thrum, the shadows disintegrated, fracturing against the force of Emily's words. Torn between despair and salvation, the dark figure writhed, a grotesque shadow dissolving into nothingness. "This is not over," its cry echoed, fading into the depths of oblivion. The light engulfed them, erasing the claustrophobic shadows. Emily felt the rush of victory pulsing through her veins, a profound sense of freedom washing over. Tommy appeared, standing resolutely among the luminous surprise, eyes wide with awe and belief. "Mommy!" he cried, raising his arms, and as if a magnet pulled the world together, Emily rushed to her son, wrapping him tightly in her embrace. The warmth of love defeated the chill that had threatened to consume them all. Mike joined them, his arms circling both of them, holding tight. "We did it," he breathed, eyes shining with tears of relief. Emily smiled, her heart soaring. Hope breathed life into them once more, and as the basement brightened, the ghosts trapped in despair began to rise, some smiling, others finally at peace. They moved with an elegance, swirling into the light, thanking the family for their freedom, taking the burdens of darkness away with them. Emily glanced around the basement, now filled with gentle light instead of oppressive shadows. The broken walls that once felt so suffocating now pulsed with warmth. Freedom had come. Together they had faced the darkest nightmare and emerged together. "Mommy, what happens now?" Tommy asked, eyes sparkling with childlike wonder. Emily knelt and hugged him, feeling the weight of his innocence. "Now, we live together." The basement felt different, alive and renewed. They had broken the cycle of despair and forged a new path full of laughter, love, and light. As they emerged from the basement, an overwhelming sense of peace enveloped them, a warmth that whispered promises of hope for tomorrow. Their struggles turned to tales of triumph, a legacy passed down between generations through the echoes of those who had fought against despair and won. "Stay close to the light," they whispered to one another. In unity, they found solace. In endings, they felt the beginnings swirl with hope, and in that moment, they knew together, they had created a beautiful future. But before this moment drifts away, I need to urge you subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your love for this journey. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to support the channel. Only true fans understand the importance of these actions. Let us keep this community growing together.